good, I think.
Yeah. So. I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Yeah.
And who made the second? Oh, thank you.
Former Mayor Colby, you wanna maybe give the new trustees a little background on everything,
Yeah, sure, great.
please?
Please stop me and ask questions if you have any. So even though we say we're gonna be doing the budget, we in the village have actually 3 budgets to do. Not today, but the next 3 weeks, we're gonna work on the A fund, general fund, which will consist of fire and rescue, police, highway, and the front office. Okay? So that's all A fund, and it'll be finished by Karen and Sarah come back and say, and by the way, you've seen the expenses, and here's the expected revenues for the general fund. All right, that's starting next week. Tonight, we're gonna do 2 budgets, one for water and one for sewer. And the way we do the budget is, and this is true for the water fund, which is F fund, the sewer fund is G fund, and the general fund, which is A fund. All the expenses that we estimate to be necessary to run those 3 operations have to be offset by revenues. Okay? And so, for example, Scott's gonna take us through what he projects expenses to be for the water fund. And then we're gonna look at what Sarah and Karen projected for revenue for the water fund. And our job is to make those match, either by finding ways to increase the revenue or reducing expenses, or a combination of the 2. And so we'll do that for water, and then we'll go through the same process for sewer. Look at Scott's projection in terms of expenses for sewer, compared to what Karen and Sarah say are the expected revenues for sewer, and we need to work to get those balanced up. Once we do those 2 things, then we're done for the night. All right, does that make sense? All right, so the way I recommend we do it is, for Scott, and what I recommend we do is we use this form, Scott, we can use this, and then you go through line by line. So this is the story, you got this in front of you. This sheet includes what actually was spent in the 2 years ago, what was budgeted for the current year, which ends May 31st of 2025, what we spent year to date, what's left over to be spent, and here's the last column is what Scott's gonna request. Now, the top is revenue. Let's hold off on revenue until we've got expenses. We'll come back to revenue later. We'll start off with Scott going through line by line and explaining to us why he needs this money for each of these line items. And as you go through it, you can compare it to what we spent year to date and what we projected last year. Okay? You're okay? Okay, so Scott, you got the
What do you want to start with water?
start with water, then start with the top line on your expenses.
Oh, let's see.
You want me to take that one? I could take the first
Well, top-
one. Top line. It is for consulting services for TIN, so we do have allocated half of it from the general, 1/4 water, 1/4 sewer, so that's what those 2 line items are.
Then you have the insurance, which. We don't have, I don't know.
Yeah,
where
no,
that
so
comes from.
basically what I did was what we paid this year,
Right,
it was, we budgeted a little less, yes. So I took what we paid this year and put an 8% increase just to cover that.
right.
We should have these actual numbers soon, but we don't have them yet. So we did an 8%.
Yeah.
I think last year was 7, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, actually, Mayor, what happens is they give us an estimate now. You really don't know until they actually send you the bill,
Okay,
which is like June 1st or something. So we're doing estimates all the way through.
yeah, okay.
And next we have capital improvements. That includes items such as fire hydrants, fire hydrant replacement, water valve replacements. Basically, that's all I usually have under capital improvements for water hydrants and valves.
So why is it that you
We have
always?
39,000 now.
Yeah, right. Good question.
What's that?
You've only spent 11,000 so far.
39,000 left.
because I was told to put everything on hold.
Okay.
And currently I have a valve that I can't use on Maple, so I can't replace the 2 hydrants that I wanted to replace. And then the other one that I have in stock can't be replaced because of the fence issue on Maple Avenue.
No, it's still,
I walked by that yesterday and I was like, oh, that's that hydrant.
So those are the reasons for that, and then the valve, I gotta do the valve down on Washington by the firehouse. But again, putting everything on hold, so I haven't done anything.
so why is it on hold? What was
Well,
the,
cause you had asked me to hold up because the revenues weren't,
oh, okay, fine.
we had a meeting.
But you had a review with the mayor, right? And you showed me the detail list. And those things that he wanted to do between now and the end of this fiscal year fit with the current budget, right?
I haven't met with Scott
We haven't
on
sat
that yet.
down and.
Oh, okay, we sent an email to, I guess, you must have sent an email. And Peter and I reviewed that, and it fits within the current year budget. So can you go and do those things that you had planned to do?
Well, we can, it's not something I necessarily wanna do in the middle of the winter,
Of course
you
not.
know? So.
But my question is, if you do those things and spend this year's money, will that change lower the number you're projecting for next year?
No.
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 So you're saying no matter what you can do this year, there's still gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, everything I have in the budget that we're working on now is not on last year's budget. So it's, you know, again,
Okay.
I can't replace any of the hydrants till A, the fence is taken care of. B, I have to replace the valve, actually it's in Karen's yard. So I gotta do that, but that I didn't have in last year's budget, because we went to use it, it won't close all the way.
Mm.
And that's a decent expense, because that's a 10-inch, and I don't have the valve in stock. But the one on Washington, I can do. We can certainly do that. And if they get the fence taken care of before May, we can do that hydrant. And that's, I believe, I don't know if I have that with me, but
Have they agreed to take care of the fence?
I haven't heard anything.
Anything from them? You gotta do something about it,
Yeah, cause I can't
impeding in your, if you have a fire.
replace it. Right,
I thought Ken had talked to the guy, you know.
That's what the plan was, Ken was
So that
supposed
was,
to reach
I
out.
don't know, when we talked about that as a group,
Yeah,
November,
2 months ago.
Progress, right?
fall, before the, before the winter.
right. Yeah, so that fence taken care of, I can do that hydrant, I could,
Reach out to Ken again. Tell
And I
him to reach
could-
out to the family again, right?
yeah. I mean, I'd like to get that done.
Yeah, sure. What's a fire hazard right there?
Yeah.
They can't
Yeah.
open the
And
spigot.
if I were to choose a different hydrant, then I gotta, the ones I have on my list are different sizes than the 3 I have in stock, so I have to purchase others, or I have to go find one, just stick it in the ground.
So if you did all the things that you anticipate wanting to do in this year, how much would the number go from 11,472? I mean, do you have $40,000 more to spend, that you can spend?
What do you mean, or year to date?
You're
So-
kidding.
He's looking at this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get so many freaking numbers.
So what you spent 11,000.
Yeah.
So he's saying, are you gonna do enough?
Well, I have listed here 26,100, which is the spreadsheet that I sent you about the projections we want for the end of the year.
So yes.
Okay, so you can spend.
Yeah.
All right. And the reason it's gone up from the 51,000 budget last year to the 57,000 this year, 11% increase is because of what? Pricing increases or what?
Well, always, but, yeah, pricing increases, I have that 10-inch valve, which is, you know, the 10-inch valve compared to 6-inch valve is considerable.
Okay. All right, go on.
Alright, so then we have, under administrative, we have operations and maintenance, the billing, the lead service line inventory, which was done last year, which we didn't have in the budget last year, so we didn't bill it out, and we won't bill it out till this coming budget, so we put it in the budget. Health department permit, which is required every year, blackboard, which is split between water and sewer. I don't know if it's split more than that. And then the census tech support is for the metering system, which is split between the water and sewer as well.
All right, so we didn't know what the lead service line inventory, we didn't know what that was, okay, fine, explains that.
Yeah,
what did you say, billing? We're billing for that? Let's-
for
let's
the
let-
lead service line inventory, yeah.
Per customer? Or?
No, VRI's billing for that for the work that I did to put it together.
Gotcha.
And since it wasn't in last year's budget, we
Yeah,
put it in this year, so it's just, it won't be there.
yeah.
I don't believe, unless they tell us to do something else.
And we're done there?
It's an ongoing thing as far as updating it, which I do when we do curb routes and such. I have to provide the state updates yearly,
Or are we booking it once?
but it's all a spreadsheet, so it's all there, it's just a matter of changing information under, so as far as putting it all together, it's done.
Training,
Yeah, that's not me. I don't know what that
Okay,
is.
so the New York Conference of Mayors and Municipal Officials fall training school, it's a week-long training school. And normally, actually, I don't think you've gone in a while. So both Sarah and Nicole would like to go to it. That cost is going to be spread out from the half general, 1/4 water, 1/4 sewer. And it's more expensive this year because it's in Lake Placid. It's the first week or second week in September. So it's in next budget year.
so it's 6,000 for 2 people.
Well, I guess we just, what is it, like 1,500 for the hotel? I don't know what the registration's probably gonna be 6 or
Yeah,
7.
they haven't posted it yet, which I'm surprised.
Yeah,
It's a check back in January.
I'd rather overestimate it than
Mhm.
underestimate it, so. Okay,
All right,
Alright, then we've got, well, the Thorndale refund is out, right?
Right.
So we don't have that anymore.
right.
Nice.
So that's paid off.
Yep.
Yup.
So next I have 6,000 for communication control. So if you remember, well, some of you will remember going back to the summer, we had issues with the water plant and I had the control guy come out. So I went, spoke to Optimum. They will not run a line down to the water plant because it's too far. Took me 6 months to get an answer, but I got one, so. So I went another route and reached out to someone that we've used for various systems, including Millerton, and I'm sure you guys are aware of what happened over there with the facility burning down. So this is all cell communication, so where you can get the information from the water plant on your phone, but you can't control anything, which is fine. I wouldn't want to control anything, but we could look at it, see the storage tank level, the clear well tank level, anything that's on the computer screen down there, he could put on there, so. That's what I put that in there for. So we can choose not to do it. But I know it's something we had talked about, so that's where that number comes from.
So it's just kind of view access for you.
Right.
Take the trustees through the issue, just so they understand what
Yeah, so we have a computer system down at the water plant that basically controls all the operations, pumps, chemical pumps, everything, turns everything on and off automatically. Communicates to the storage tank up on Haight to know what the level is, when to turn pumps on, when to turn them off. That was put in, I think we started at 21 with the upgrade. So this past summer in July, there was an issue where basically the computer almost didn't shut down, but it stopped controlling everything. Storage tank got low, and then we couldn't do anything in automatic. So we ended up having to set it up, run manual through the weekend until the control company that programmed everything came out, and he said they had to do a software upgrade. Well, there's no internet down there. So they had to go back to the sewer plant, download everything, go back to the water plant. So that's when we initiated with Optimum to try to get internet down there. But they won't run won't run cable down there. So I had another company come out to look into it as well. And they were talking like $30,000, but they were talking more, with like high security stuff. But we were, some places like City of Poughkeepsie and larger places where you have all that, where you need to have all that information, be able to control it remotely. We don't really need that here, never had it here. But it would be nice to, like when we're out down to the sewer plant where we are all day, we're out the water plant maybe an hour a day to see where things are at. We had issues with the chemical pumps, where sometimes they'll get an air bubble and they won't. They're designed to switch over when there's two pumps and they've got chemicals in each. So when one gets low, it switches over to the other one. But sometimes when they get like an alarm, they won't do that. And if they don't do that, then they're not pumping the proper chemicals. And then there's other times like when we had the drought, we know where the clear well level is because it gets too low, and the pumps will shut off. So there's various things that would be nice to be able to see where things are at any given time. There's also times where at 2 o'clock in the morning you get a call for a low storage tank or a high storage tank.
It's in your closet.
And there's times where don't necessarily need to come out if it's not too low. They can come out first thing in the morning and do it. But if you didn't know what the level was, you would, you just have to come out and deal with it. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Is this an annual expense or one time?
I believe this is a one-time. I have to check with them on whether there's an annual expense. I don't think it's it would be $6,000.
Okay.
It would have to be on like a server, so there's probably some annual expense to that.
Is it custom controls?
No, it's Mike Rupert. I don't know what his. I don't know.
There's usually a service.
I would assume so when he talked about putting it on a server, but I haven't got an official quote from him yet. But that was the number he gave me last week when we met.
And just with like the summer issue as an example, just gives you kind of real-time information, obviously, which is good, but they would still have to come out the next week to do whatever, to update the software, let's say.
Yeah, correct. Right. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I don't know if there's anything you can do to. I mean, it has to be fixed. Like because it's all proprietary stuff.
Yeah.
So if something had to be fixed in the actual computer system, you'd have to get the company to come out.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds reasonable to me.
It's a good call.
If it gets tight, we'll put an asterisk on that one, but
Yeah.
it seems like it'd be helpful.
So next on our list is chemicals. We have 3 chemicals that we use out there: chlorine for disinfection, orthophosphate and caustic soda for corrosion control. As always, the cost on chemicals go up, and it's always difficult because it's all based on how much water we produce. So I keep tabs on all that, but it doesn't always, everything fluctuates every year, so, I do my best to estimate what we're gonna do, but I can't predict when they're gonna raise the prices, so I usually put in an extra couple, like 2 or 3% in there to try to cover it, but it doesn't always.
Well, given that you've already overspent this year's budget,
Yeah.
obviously you need to address that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Next we have laboratory testing. Most of that's pretty standard because there's only a few things. This year we have SOC samples, which are basically pesticides and herbicides. That's every 3 years. And we also have radiological samples, which are every 6 years. All the other stuff is yearly. So there's the cost of those extra ones are in there. I could run down a whole list of testing if you want. There's a whole litany of them. But most of them are standard, so.
Thanks.
And then we've got basically next is security system that we have there, the diamond maps, New York Board of Water, fees, and Dig Safe. Those are all lumped in the next one.
That's utilities,
Nope,
that
that
was
was
the one above.
it's distribution.
First one,
Yeah. Yeah. And then the next one's utilities, which is strictly electric out there.
you haven't used any diesel this year?
No, haven't. Knock on wood, the generators just run exercise weekly. We haven't,
Alright,
outside maybe a couple, but yeah, there's, I don't know how big the tank is, but we're down to like 87%. So the generator runs 5 days straight without having to refuel it.
no,
So we've done that once. So yeah, I didn't change that. We haven't used it this year. So unless, I never know we got a few months left. But usually I won't fill it up unless it gets down under 50%.
alright,
Heating fuel, we don't have any. It's all electric heat. Then we have the equipment and supplies. General testing supplies for the tests we do every day. The sampling of the water plant. Equipment and parts, including filters, valve boxes, curve valves, couplings, all that repair stuff. Try to keep stock of stuff, so when we need it, we have it.
good.
And then repairs and maintenance.
Now, why'd that increase so much?
Well, we should be, and based on with the lead service line inventory, we have several hundred service lines that we have to fully identify. And we had 10 years to do it. So 2 years ago, we started replacing curb valves, and then at the same time, we can identify the service lines, both sides of the curb valve, which we're required to have. So my feeling was, if you gotta dig it up and check it, you might as well replace the curb valve. And that's what we started. We started on Franklin last year, we did Washington Avenue. So I had in there to do, I was hoping to do like 12 or so. We could usually, if I stay on the same street, I could do 2 a day. So I try to budget for about 12, which would give me about 6 days of work. Which, in 10 years, not gonna quite get us to the 300 that we need to do. But I don't think we can fit in 30 or 40 of them a year. ideally.
So this isn't just where we're planning to pave, you go before we pave and replace all those.
No, I mean, Washington I did because that's what we were gonna
Yeah,
do.
right.
And those are all in the road. No, I mean, like just, well, my plan this year is to do Anson, because I have other things I wanna do on Anson as well. And then a few others in that area, just to try to stay close. But I mean, there's probably 340 that we have to do. So now, there's other ones that'll come up that someone has a problem and you gotta go fix it. We had that on Maple last year. But my feeling is if we could do a street or part of a street, like Maple's long, so I couldn't do the whole thing in 1 year. But Anson, I think I've got like 8 that I have to do, there's a couple that we've already done. And Hillside's got like 3, so that would be another easy one to do, so then you can start knocking them out. That way we can complete that inventory as far as knowing both sides of the service line, and we get new curb valves, which a lot of these probably date back to the 30s, so. Amazingly enough, a lot of them work. But you might as well, at some point, you're gonna need to replace it. So that's why I think we should do a certain amount every year.
And then you start all over again. You get to the last one and then you start
Yeah,
all over again.
exactly. Yeah, so and then there's like Washington and Franklin were a little bit more difficult. Franklin's under the sidewalk. Washington, they were in the street. Most of the ones on Anson that I can think of are in grass, which makes it a little bit easier. Don't have to pave it. All you do is put grass seed and hay down, which is a heck of a lot cheaper than pavement. And it's a little bit quicker because you're not having to dig up the pavement. So when I can get to the ones in the grass, which a lot of them are, that will make it easier, and we might be able to get a few more done.
So do you see yourself spending the rest of this year's budget? This spring?
Yeah, we could do, certainly could do more curb valves. But again, there's only so much time to do hydrants and curb valves and everything else.
So that's one, are you gonna be able to spend all that? You have 21,000 left to spend.
Yeah, and we still have meter repairs that, again, some of it's leak repairs, which we just did, so that bill hasn't come in yet.
Okay.
With the repairs, it's a little hard, it's like I can plan to do curb valves, but I can't plan to do water leaks,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I budget for them, not knowing if and when they're gonna happen. Or how many. So that, there's always gonna be probably something left over if we don't have any. Like a couple years ago, we had like 1. This year we've had a couple. So it's hard to, can't plan for it, but I do the best we can to predict. We're always budgeting for something. So I mean, we could obviously, if we spend the money on putting curb valves in, for sure. But like I said, the repairs from last week's gonna come in. And then I haven't billed yet for the meter, we had to do a check at the elementary school. So I mean, those things will be there, and I also have to deal with the Thorn Farm meter, so that's something we could do this spring. So I have to replace that meter head.
All right, well, what I see is, as far as degrees of freedom, there's 2 categories. One is that repairs and maintenance.
Right.
We could restrict how much you can do there. The other is going up there to the
Capital improvement.
capital improvement, right?
Correct.
We can govern,
That's usually where we.
right, push that,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, let me cover the next ones, which are the bands. So
Yeah.
just to explain it more. So about 8 years ago, and Scott, help me out on the specifics here. We got an order from the DEC that because our water source was groundwater under the possible influence of bacterial contamination, we had to go and put in a filtration system, all right? And by the way, Mary, this is something, maybe you wanna have or maybe you get the trustees together and all go down there.
Yep.
And have Scott give you a show and tell, both of the water plant as well as the sewer plant. It might just help them understand what it is they're talking about. Everybody but Patrick, of course. He can give it to her maybe. But anyway, so it required us to have a new filtration system. And so what we ended up doing was a $2 million upgrade project that first put a new building in place that had 2 sets of filters. All the water goes through 1 or 2 banks. It goes through, correct me, 20 micron, 5 micron, and 1 micron
Correct.
filtration before it heads off to our houses. We had the pumps reworked. There was electronics upgrade done down there. We also had the water tower resurfaced,
Inside.
outside and inside.
And emptied, cleaned, resurfaced inside now.
Yeah.
Which hadn't been done since 1990.
Okay. And we also had a lot of valves either replaced or added as appropriate to,
We added a new valve at the storage tank, cause the 12-inch valve that was up there that shut the whole tank off was in the ground with a wheel, and we couldn't turn it. But it was under the ground, so we ended up putting a new one in outside so we could access it with just a key like we do in the street. That was part of that as well.
so it was a $2 million project. We got $0.8 million from the state. Left the village with a bill of $1.2 million to pay off. So to pay that off, we have a $500,000 bond, 10-year bond, that we're about to pay off, I think it's next year. And then we have 2 bond anticipation notes. A bond anticipation note is a loan from the bank for 1 year that allows them to, they front us the money, and all we have to pay off is the interest. And we can roll that over for up to 7 years, okay? So what we have is a $500,000 bond, a $550,000 ban, and a $200,000 ban. Now what happens is, when we pay off the bond, the last payment for the 10-year bond will be 2026. And that's what the next year we have to convert the $550,000 ban to a bond. All right, 10-year bond, it'll be at a higher rate. We'll pay that over for 10 years. And the year after that, you have to convert the final $200,000 ban to a bond. So what I'm telling you is that by 2028, we will have replaced the $500,000 bond, which we pay, as you can see, it's called the Bedrock Well line. Today we pay $50,000 principal and $3,750 of interest. We will then have to convert that $53,000 into what will be a total of about, I'm gonna estimate $105,000 of principal and interest. And that's gonna be in about 3 years, okay? It's just a heads up to you that when we talk about revenue, which we'll do next, we're gonna be thinking about building ourselves a reserve so that when we get to the point of having to convert those 2 bans to bonds, we've got additional money coming in from the rates that we're charging our customers to be able to fund that. So is there any questions about that, the idea of the ban and the bond? No? Okay. So with that, Karen, why don't you just explain what we have down here on the list for these bans and the bonds?
The 2 bond anticipation notes.
Yes.
I think number 1 is the $500,000 one, and then
It's $550, that one.
550,
Yeah.
and then band number 2 is 200.
So you see now, you just see interest for those 2, right? And then you see on the Bedrock Well, you see a principal line and an interest line.
Right.
So that's what we're doing currently. And all I'm telling you is that when we pay off the bond, we're gonna have to convert one of the bands to a bond, and then next year convert the other band to a bond. Which means we'll be paying off the water upgrade into 2036.
Right.
All right.
So having that 52,000 one paid off next year, that eases that
Yeah.
burden of that additional principal and interest.
All right, so based on what Scott showed you, what we just talked about as far as the bonds, you see the total expenses projected for the next fiscal year is $401,048, all right? So then Sarah, why don't you take us through your projected revenue?
You didn't do capital reserve.
Just put 10,
Oh, yeah, right, we put in 10,000 as a capital reserve, which is
which gives us that.
we're just starting to fund, to save some money for when we have to pay these higher bond rates. Because by the way, the interest rate on the current bond is probably like 1 or 2%,
Yeah, it's low.
right? When we refinance with the new bands, it's gonna be in the range of like 4%. All right, so it's a big kicker to us there. All right, so given that there's the expenses, now we're gonna talk about revenue. So Sarah, do you have a sheet for everybody to look at?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, good. We'll just cover the top half, which is the revenue for the water.
So if you have your sheet handy. Thank you. Yeah. So at the top of the sheet is, what we've collected so far. And the last one is an estimate, because we haven't billed for that one yet. So that's just kind of like the numbers we put into our system. So I just kind of put some information, so.
But before you finish, let me just tell you that, all right, so that number totals up to $364,600, you know? Our budget for this year is $384,000. Now, the 384, so that says we're $20,000 short, right? But if you look at the budget for last year, as part of our expenses, we assumed $30,000 reserve. If you go back to your table. All right, so what we're gonna do is, instead of putting $30,000 toward reserve, we'll put just $10,000, which zeroes us out as far as expenses equal revenue for the current fiscal year. All right? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just making. Okay. So last time we had a water rate increase was in June of 23, and that was at 3.5%. Current rate is $7.50 per 1,000 gallons for village, and then town has a separate rate of $10.86 cents per
So if you live
1,000
outside the
gallons.
village and use our water, we charge you a higher rate. Okay,
Right. And the quarterly average is $91,160, and that includes the meter fee, which we had just implemented in this past fiscal year, the one we're currently in. So with the current meter fee, we're at $20 per quarter. So I have made a recommendation to go to $25 per quarter. I just think that it's not like it won't be a huge burden on the customer, and then but it's a huge return for us. So I did the breakdown in that, if you have any questions about that. And then I put in what we've received to date, for miscellaneous things like our penalties and interest with New York class. We had some service charges, so we put that in our system. So the one where it says projected 24-25, that is kind of where I think we're gonna end up, based on all of the numbers and all the data. And then the projected figures is what I think would be in line with what we should put in for revenues. So I don't know if you.
so just a caveat, just know that we, for the first time, put in place this $20 per meter fee starting last January, about a year ago, right? And by the way, the Village of Millbrook had a meter fee many, many years ago. We hadn't had it for, I'm gonna say, 40 years or so.
Easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
And most of the communities around us have had meter fees, fixed, right? The idea is that you have a line going into your house, regardless of how much money, how much water you use, it's there for you to use. And so you should pay for the maintenance and repair of that line. That was the rationale. So the only thing about raising $5 is that we just did it a year ago. So just so you, the board members, gotta know the sensitivity of that. That is an easy fix for us. It brings in a for sure $15,000 extra revenue for the year. But it is something we just did for the first time a year ago. So just keep that in mind. The alternative would be to raise the rate per 1,000 gallons. And the nice part of the meter fee is it's a fixed number, you know what it's gonna be. The water rate is a function of the weather. So if it's a really dry summer or year, you're gonna earn more revenue from water. Conversely, if it's a wet year, you get less water spent, all right? So there's a fluctuation that varies. And that's why her recommendation to increase the meter fee from $20 a quarter to $25 is a solid solution.
So it's more consistent, we know what we're getting, we know what we have, we know what
Right.
we're working with.
It's just that people aren't gonna like the fact that we just did this a year ago and now we're doing it again,
Right.
just so you know that.
Yeah.
Okay. But then taking her number, which totals $411,800, and going back to the cheat sheet where Scott showed us the expenses, which total $401,000, even with putting the $10,000 in the reserve, that says we could really put $20,000 in the reserve and accept what Scott has proposed. All right. So the question is, does the board think that's a path forward to accept Scott's recommendations for the expenses as defined and accept Sarah's recommendation of an increase in the meter fee?
Just-
Yes,
To go along with the meter fee, so everybody else knows. The new meters that we're putting in have a 20-year battery life.
oh, good point.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
This is what preempted the discussion about this meter fee, well, one of the reasons. So we started in 2012, so 20 years, we're putting at 2032. We gotta start replacing upwards of 200 meters. At a cost of, right now, $200 a piece. So in order to do that, you know, we start this reserve fund, we might have, you know, be able, I mean, now some of those probably have been replaced already because of various issues, but I have a list and I do my best to keep track so we know when they're gonna come up. Now they might last an extra year, but they say 20 years and they have a stamp on the meters. So, and that's just gonna be an ongoing thing. We still have, I think, we have about 500 of those and we probably have another 250 or so that are the older style, which don't have batteries. And we replace them as needed. So eventually we'll be getting almost 700 plus. And we also have larger meters, which are only have a 10-year battery life, which we already started replacing some of those. Those we don't have to replace the whole meter, because those meters cost roughly $1,500, $2,000 a pop, but we can replace just the meter head on it, which is only probably like $500. So that's, you know, part of the reason why.
And in other communities, does the municipality pay for the cost of the new meter or does the
I don't know about
customer?
I don't know about others, but that's how it's been here, unless there's been an issue with the meter. So what we've done is with these new meters is the village has put them in because going back, you know, till 2012, we had issues where we couldn't read the meters and so on and so forth. That's what initiated all this. So if they've got an older meter, I'll call it a brass meter because the new ones are like a plastic composite. If they have an older brass meter and it needs to be replaced, we replace it with a new one. If they have a new one, if it's not functioning, like say the battery dies, then we replace it. If it's someone says, well, you know, my bill's not right, and they question it, well, we'll have it tested. If it tests out fine, and 99% of the time it does, they have to pay the cost of the meter. If the meter freezes and breaks, as per this is in the code. You know, maintenance of the meter the meter is the village, but it has to be taken care of by the building owner. So if it freezes and breaks, and we've had those happen, they have to pay for the new meter. So what we usually do is we'll give them the meter. In an instance when it freezes and breaks, they gotta get it done, right? They gotta get it done, we stick it on their water bill. So
Okay.
that's where we're at.
You've also tooled around with looking at different meter fees for larger customers, like commercial clients. So we haven't made a decision on there yet, but you know, some of the larger clients in the village water system, in other municipalities, there's a commercial fee, which is higher than a residential fee. So that's something we're looking at as well, you know, for the future.
Yeah, actually Karen showed us what Rhinebeck does, and what they do is, it's not a higher fee, but it's a minimum charge per quarter. Right, that's what the table says?
The base, I
I'm
mean, it
surprised at
changes from if you have a 3/4 inch or inch or inch and a half or 2 inch.
So it's surprising to me, it charges, it says that the rate per 1,000 gallons is the same, but I have to pay a minimum of this amount. And the amount
And then we'll
increases the
9,000.
larger your
Right.
pipe goes. So that was a surprise to me. Now Scott's concern with doing it is, my concern is too, not until we know for sure where these larger service lines are completely, can we really implement that, because we can't go and implement it and find out later that John Doe's got a new rate because he's got a bigger line, but his next door neighbor, who we don't know about, has the same size line, and we didn't charge him. That's just asking for trouble. So we need first to have, at least for the businesses, have VRI to go and do an audit of just which lines are going to what businesses.
Well, the other problem, and I mentioned this earlier today, is with the businesses, and I'll use Belletri's building downtown as an example. They have one line in there, it's 3/4 inch, but they also have apartments in there. So that services the whole building. Where you have some that have multiple meters, one's for the business like Stewart's. And then, you know, there's others that have the business on the bottom, apartments on the top, Belletri's building down with the pharmacy. They have the apartments up top, they have it all separate, but not everybody's like that, so it creates an issue is trying to figure out exactly how to go about that. And we don't have an inventory of all the lines and meters.
Well, who cares really about the lines going in? Wouldn't it just be the amount of quantity of water you're using, and your meter's still reading that? So if you have a standard for a commercial building, you know, I mean,
Right.
still, it doesn't matter the size of the line. It matters how much water is going into the building.
Correct.
So if you have a standard for a commercial building, maybe the rate's higher.
Right.
You know.
Do commercial rates.
Yeah, that would sound, I like that better.
Yeah, commercial rates.
So
with minimum.
if you did that, now again, I don't know, but like,
It'd be hard with apartments.
but you know, chances are the people that if you're on one meter, someone's paying that bill,
Right.
right? So in the case of Belletri's paint shop, I don't know who pays the bill, but if just say, you know, Belletri's pays the bill for the entire building, you know, there you go.
Yeah.
When the owner passes it on, that's
They
not
could do-
our concern, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
I mean, if there's a commercial operation there, it's a commercial, maybe there's a number that we set that
Yeah.
it becomes commercial.
I mean, that's probably your best bet, is trying to figure out
Every
different meters and, because we have a few, not many, but there are some larger meters that are not commercial. Not
What's an example? Just
set of
for-
condos,
Condos, yeah.
there's four, for all the condos there, I don't know how many there are, but there's 8 buildings, right? 8. There's 4 meters. One meter does two buildings. I don't know how many units are in each building, but and then also I believe Bear Valleys have a large meter on 9 Partners as well.
So each
Why?
unit doesn't pay their own water usage, is that
At the condos?
it? Yeah,
Yeah, it's all there's only 4 there's 4 meters.
so they pay it in their maintenance fees or something?
HOA fees.
I don't do the billing, but
I know.
I
It's like,
believe
how do
it's
they
it's
figure
paid
that
through the association,
Oh, okay.
homeowners, whatever
Okay.
group that's there.
It's just really attractive because there's something like, for example, the golf course,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, there's something right there which
Yeah.
just cries out
Yeah.
for
They've got
a different rate.
a number of meters up there.
Well, I guess the question is, could Scott, how long would it take you to go back and do an assessment of the businesses, commercial, to see how complete a list, what it would take to get a complete list?
Boy, I mean,
We
I've
can't,
got a list that I put together. mean, I don't, because unfortunately, when, at least from what I've seen and when I've read the meters, it doesn't say, sometimes it's a LLC that owns it.
Like where you have to have a standard. It
You
can
know,
be
it's got an address, but it's got an
incorporated
LLC,
yeah.
it's like, well, I have to physically go, like, walk down the street and try to figure it all out.
Yeah.
Cause like, when an LLC owns, 61 Front Street, like off the top of my head, I couldn't even tell you what that is, I can tell you where 61 Front Street is, but I don't know what building it is, but I'd have to go there and look. I did this off, our diamond meter system,
Oh, no,
and
okay.
put together the list, I would, we could tidy it up, some of them might have like 4 meters, I only listed it once, but then others have, like the deli's got 2, I listed that twice. So it depends on how in detail we wanna get, just.
So I see we have like 6 weeks between now and approving the budget. And I don't know if we're gonna rush this thing.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we should ask the RI to do due diligence, bring back to the board, an assessment that says, here's what is out there. For the board to then play around with, what we should do about it. But given now where we are with a budget that's got expenses under revenue, I think, and you decide how you're gonna do it, we'll talk about the board, you wanna wait or not. But I think you can make a motion now to have the board accept what's proposed, at least for the current day. And of course, you have between now and the actual review, public hearing of the budget to actually implement. But we can do that because you've got revenue exceeding expenses. So it's up to you what you want to do. Is there any more discussion from the board, any questions about what we're doing here?
No, I understand it.
No, I think the idea of mapping out where the different meters are, that makes a lot of sense going forward. I think that sets us up for a lot of the water and sewer stuff that we're gonna be, having to take care of.
And especially since I'm looking at this Greenbrier settlement, so,
We'll be discussing that.
but I'm just saying that if we get them on the commercial thing to kind of make up.
Well, there's nobody there right now, so
Yeah.
that's a one-time thing.
Yeah.
All right, so based on this, you ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, so water is closed, right? I think it's time for the board to think about it, chew on it. Maybe you can talk to some residents about what we're talking about, whatever, and get some feedback if you want. But we just set it aside for the time being, as agreed to. And this will be the charts that Nicole can send out as the official numbers we agreed to at the meeting tonight. If so, then let's move on to sewer.
So do you wanna put the overage into capital?
Yes,
Okay,
capital reserve.
so to make it match, just put it
Yeah.
into capital.
So I take. The difference.
Yeah, 21,152.
All right, so there we have revenue equal expenses. All right. Okay, Scott, next.
Go around the sewer.
Yep.
Yeah, the
First line's the consultant thing. We'll just go over
Slip
that.
some stuff in there.
And then the insurance. We just went up on that, right?
Well, we
So-
budgeted 35 last year and the bill was only 28, so then I just did 8% over the 28, lowered it by.
So we have administration, so we have operation and maintenance and billing. We have the annual I&I report, which I think we'll have to adjust based on what I learned tonight.
Right.
You have that, Tim?
Yeah, actually, we have to increase that number significantly because we have the I&I report, which Ty and Bonds took over. We have the ED's permit, and we have the EPA audit, all of which are generating work.
Listen to this.
That's a good point, Tim. I guess, so before we, in terms of some of those budget adjustments from Tig and Bond.
Yep.
That I shared with you, and I feel like, are some of those gonna carry over to the next fiscal year?
That's a good
I&I
question.
report,
Definitely the I&I report, which is
that's annual.
double what we put in the budget.
Yeah, the number I used was what we've done in the past, because I didn't have the information from Time Bond.
So is it true that those other charges should not carry over? Speedy's permit and audit compliance?
But what's the Speedy's, that's not the actual Speedy's permit, because that's listed under something else. That's their work on the new permit, which
Right,
is not gonna be an annual thing,
right, it's not gonna be, so this will be a one-time deal.
I would assume.
It'll be in this year's budget. Okay,
I can't speak for Time Bond, but I would assume so.
okay, fine. So other things they've listed here, it's only the $7,400 for the I&I report that we need to carry over to next year's budget. Okay, which is double what you had. Okay,
So is that in your administration or is that up under engineering?
Yes.
that's in
I've had-
administration.
I've had the I&I report under administration.
That's fine.
We can.
So we just.
That's what I've had it in the
That's
past.
fine.
So we need to increase this number by $3,700 is what we're saying.
So from 36 to,
74. Oh, okay, so that's, what is that? That's 3,800.
So this goes to 70.
So what I'm saying is that Scott assumed an INR report cost of 3,600, all right, to get to the total number of the 165,416.
Well, now it's
And now what we're saying is that's not 3,600, that's 7,400.
So it's 169,216.
It's what?
Okay,
Well,
we
if-
added it to the 165, 416.
Yeah, if you.
3,800, right, got it, yes, that's
Yeah.
right,
She did.
yes.
Okay.
And Scott, just again to be clear.
Sure.
That's still only, not 2% increase from last year's number.
Right, last year I used 4.5% when I, even though it wasn't,
Oh, I see.
because I didn't have the number when I put my numbers in.
Ah.
I just looked back at my last year's stuff.
All right, so we should not use all of the money in this year's budget for the admin.
Yeah, last year,
The 163,049,
Yeah.
we're gonna beat that number.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's,
because he padded it last year, so he didn't have the exact number.
I didn't have the exact number when we had, before we
Okay.
had our meeting, so I used 4.5% when
All
I
right,
did my
good.
calculation.
So that explains why this year's number only grew.
I didn't do the math, but I was
Okay, good.
account for what you were talking about.
All right, good, got it. Go ahead.
Blackboard, census tech support, saying this, the water is just split between the two.
The trustees know that Scott's going for details, he's going to these cheat sheets right here.
We had the training, which we did in the water, same thing.
Yep.
Then we have capital improvements. Basically, that is all I've been doing the last several years for capital improvements on sewer is sewer main lining. So that's what that is. I have 640 feet this year.
That's what you did, or that's what you planned?
That's what I wanna do,
Oh,
yeah.
how's that compare to this year?
This year, what I did.
Well, you tried to get around 600, right?
Yeah, it was 6 something. I think it was like 643 to be exact.
Oh, all right.
So, this year's number came in less than what I budgeted for, but I always try to plan for a little more, cause it's all based on price per foot, but the more you do, the less
Mm-hmm.
per foot, and if I can do like a continuous line, like, so this year I put in for Anson Avenue, which is 367 feet, so if they can do all that in one shot, it tends to be a little bit less than if they had 3 sections of 200 feet in different areas. So that's where the capital improvements are for this year.
All right.
Then next we have security, the DEC permit, garbage removal, fire extinguishers, and the mapping system. All under the next line. That's all.
All right.
Not much of that changes except for cost increases. Sludge hauling is next.
Big increase there.
Yeah, well, see, and we talked about this at some point, but with the upcoming upgrade, at some point I have to stop using the sludge drying beds. So I have to increase the liquid, which tends to be a little bit more, and I've been trying to, because when we get to that upgrade, I'll have to figure out exactly how much we have to do, so I've increased the liquid hauling on this year's budget, which is the increase on that. I still have the dry stuff on there, because we still have to clean the filter beds. I've been debating whether or not I'm gonna use the sludge drying beds this year, but at some point I gotta stop, so like whenever they start construction, that's where it's gonna go. I can't have stuff in there if they're gonna tear it down, so, right now we are using them, so. That's pretty much the increase in
Okay,
then we've got utilities, phone and internet, and electric.
all right.
And then the diesel is for the generator. We filled it up once last year. Yeah, 588. So you usually, because we also use the diesel from that tank for the tractor. So we usually fill it up about once a year.
All right.
Heating fuel. So we increase that. And chemicals. Yeah, so we changed our dechlorination chemical in July. So I don't have a lot of numbers to figure out exactly how much I'm gonna use per year, so I did the best estimate I could on that, and it costs a little bit more than what we were using before. And again, chemical price, it's increased. So that's where that, most of that's from.
Okay.
Laboratory, since our permit changed, there's not a whole lot of daily testing that changed, but they have required the emerging contaminants to be, which is basically the PFAs, which we test on the water, but now they're requiring it on the sewer. We started that in December as going on with the engineering, so I had that, I still have to do that quarterly for 4 consecutive quarters, so I have two more quarters to do. And I think I actually added an extra quarter in the budget just in case they require us to do more. And that's
These are the EPA requirements.
well, DEC.
Oh, DEC, okay.
Yes. And then equipment and supplies, hasn't changed too much. Just the daily testing equipment, I need to get a new pH meter. The current one reads in temperature in Celsius, and now the permit requires Fahrenheit, so we've just been converting it.
Seriously?
Yeah.
They
Not that
they
that's-
can't do the math and figure it out on their own.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got a number of sewer facilities, and some are Celsius, some are Fahrenheit. I don't know why we can't just pick one and go.
Standardized.
Yeah. So that and the fact that pH meter is probably over 10 years old, so it wouldn't be bad to get a new one. So I put that in there this year. Then we got repairs and maintenance.
So what's all in there?
Well, $20,000 in there is for the fence around Bennett Pump Station, so we can discuss that. But we originally had it in the Bennett budget, but then because of all the cost increases, we took it out. But I went and got a price anyway and see where we're at, so we could decide if we wanted to do it or not. You and I discussed
Yeah,
whether
right.
we were gonna do it or not, but
Okay, well, this is the time to discuss it, okay.
Yeah.
then.
that's why I put it in there.
Patrick, what do you think about that? Do we need a fence around that pump station? You know, down there by your beautiful park?
Yeah. What do you
It's
think?
it's never had one.
It's never had a problem, right? Never had anyone mess
When
with it,
we
it's all locked
started,
up.
when we started the whole project, we put it in there knowing that the park was gonna be built.
Mhm.
A lot more foot traffic,
Yeah.
right? So that was the basis for me
Mhm.
requesting it at that time.
20,000 for a fence? How about
Well-
a few trees to hide it? Screen it.
You
Ooh,
could do
that's an idea.
whatever, yeah,
Instead of a fence, it's probably nicer, it'll hold up forever and, just get a couple of pine trees
Arborvitae's or something,
instead of.
I'll be asking George Whalen if they'll make a donation from True Gardens towards the beautification of the
Yeah.
park.
The park.
That's a great idea.
Instead of the fence,
Yeah,
it's cheaper.
much.
natural,
Looks
no
nice.
maintenance.
And no one's, well, it's not that entertaining to go back there in general, so.
No,
You know?
exactly. No, everything's locked. I mean, if at some point we find
The
it
park
gets
will be a
vandalized,
distraction.
we'll have to deal with it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
Patrick, how many trees do you think that,
I mean, aesthetically, the trees would look better,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
bushes or whatever.
talking about?
Great idea.
You're talking about a dozen trees or?
No, I bet you.
Well, it depends on what you want.
You gotta
Where
keep
do you
that
want it?
access
Is it the
open.
little, is it that white box that's off the
Yes.
road, that's what we're?
Well, there's more, you got the generator.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's
Paneling.
that
That area, that's right.
equipment that's right there.
Yeah, yeah, you can see it from the road.
Yeah,
Well, it depends on how
Yeah,
far
I
you
mean,
wanna go. Do
maybe-
you wanna screen it from the road, the park, and,
Yeah.
do
you
whatever.
probably the park and the road,
I'd like to see, come summer, from the road, how much you can actually see there.
right, probably not a lot.
Because you're looking at
More
look
than
for
you
it.
think. Well, maybe it just,
No,
I
okay, you
notice
can
it.
sell, okay.
I drive by it every day.
I was hoping to just drop a bag of fertilizer and have all the green stuff just grow faster. But maybe the trees is even, that's even
Yeah.
smart.
Deer will dog arborvitae.
That's
Eat
true.
that. They'll eat it like Fritos.
Yeah.
So-
Gone if it's
All right.
arborvitae.
So can we agree, we don't need the fence?
I think we don't need it. Doesn't make sense to
Love
me.
that.
I mean, do we have a problem? We've never had a problem
We-
there.
No, like I said, we've never had a problem.
Yeah. It's
So
not that.
But the park was never there.
Yeah.
But we mentioned it now, so
Let's see what
we
this-
want.
The reason why, it was brought up.
I think if you
going
just screen it,
back.
hide it a little bit, and then leave that access open for your trucks in and out, and then,
No, I mean, you could put up.
I don't think you need to even wrap the whole thing. If you're driving by it on Franklin Avenue, you're doing 45 miles an hour already, or 35 miles an hour already, you're passing it, you're not slowing down to stop and pull in there. Hide it from the condos in the parking lot.
Well, plus even if you see it from the road, you're not gonna go, down the ditch, cross the street and
Yeah,
get to it.
exactly.
right? You're gonna make the turn in there and then
Yeah.
whatever. So, are we agreed we're gonna take out that 20,000?
I think we should.
Wow,
See?
yeah, I love it.
That's what I did.
Patrick,
Gotta figure it out.
Patrick, freeze
he
it
gets
in.
a cold start.
Well done,
There you go.
well done.
So then we can change that number down to 51,000? Maybe I'll just, I don't know. You're at 57 this year, do you wanna keep it flat?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't put it, basically because of that 20,000, I
Yeah,
put in less manual work.
so we'll make it 57,015 again? How's that?
That's fair.
57 even, or do you need the 015?
Well,
No,
I-
57 even's fine.
Okay.
You don't need
Yes.
15 cents.
So Peter, you okay with that?
Yep.
All right, good. All right, move on. All right, this is, I think, Karen, you need to speak to this, is that right?
The Bennett Pump Station, we have a bond anticipation note out on that, and that is callable at the end of April. We will be converting that into, well, we will be paying off the BAN, but we have 100,000 difference that we will need to do a bond for.
Well,
So-
let me just explain that. So we did this replacement of the pump station down there and added a generator. And that cost us, is it 327 or 328,000?
320 something.
Yeah, something like that. And we also got from New York State member money of 250,000. So it ended up with a net cost to the village of, this is about 100,000. And so is that 100,000 we're doing this bond for? We're gonna convert that ban of 330,000 into a bond of like 100,000. 10-year bond, or 7-year bond.
7-year.
And if you do that, then the principal and interest Is that the 14?
Yes.
14,285 and 4, that's at 4%.
Yes, okay. And that's where Sarah needs to go out and, solicit banks to get the best rate, bring it to the board, you gotta approve it, and we have to actually secure the bond. That's the plan here, to convert that ban to a bond. All right? So we don't need to pay the ban interest on that. We will have to pick up a bond.
Correct.
So that's the 14,000.
Yes.
Plus 4.
And then the 4,000, that's,
14,000 is the
This is the,
principal,
yes,
and the 4,000 is the interest, assuming 4%.
Correct, yes.
And again, those are estimates we got right now, but she'll get firm numbers in the next month or so.
Yes.
Takes care of the pump station, and then the bands down there, band number 1 and band number 2, those are 2 bands of $300,000 each we took out to pay for the upfront engineering costs for Ty and Bond to do the engineering work to size the upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant. All right? And the discussion we had while you guys were up in executive session was based on me asking Aaron from Ty and Bond at the last board meeting, will EFC pick up the cost of that band this year before we have to pay interest? She said yes. But Karen's not too sure about that, so we're gonna do some G2 between you talking to your financial advisor and me going back to Ty and Bond to see who their financial expert is, just to confirm that. So right now, we're gonna leave in the 2 interest payments of $97.50 for the time being. Maybe we can take that out. My fingers crossed. We should assume it's there for now. Finish up the discussion. And also then at the bottom, you see a capital reserve amount of $5,000 we put in there just to finish things up. So the total of that now, so that's a new number you got then?
Yep.
The 434?
Yep.
And versus, Sarah wants to talk about the revenue.
What was that number, sorry?
oh, here we go.
So we're gonna go back to Sarah's cheat sheet here of the revenue. She's got water on the top and sewer at the bottom.
Right.
Okay, so go on.
Alrighty, so for sewer, again, at the very top, you'll see what we've collected, and the last one is the estimate. So last increase we had was June of 24, and that was from $9 to $9.90. Because of the wastewater treatment plant upgrade and all of the Bennett pump station and everything, Tim suggested that we do an increase of 15%. And that's been discussed the past couple of budget meetings anyway, to do. So the recommended rate increase was $11.39. That's 15%, but if we wanna make it even to $11.50, that's only 16.2%, so entirely up to you guys.
So if you do the rate increase of to $11.50 and do a common increase for the SBA, the total revenue in the bottom right-hand corner is gonna be what?
I didn't factor that, I did everything off 15%.
Okay, good. So the $11.39, so what's it turn out to be? The total revenue?
337. Are you talking? I think she put all these together.
Yeah, if you put them all together, what's this number down here? What's-
445.
Yeah, so this is off 15%.
Right, okay.
So the sewer billing, we estimated about 337,000 to collect. When we increase the SBA, the 15%, if you guys approve it, it's $81,650 and miscellaneous charges at $7,000, so total being $425,650.
Okay, fine. Let me just explain a couple of things to the board. So first off, for sewer, we have a rate per 1,000 gallons used of water, all right? And we also have something called a special benefit assessment, an SBA, it's a sewer special benefit assessment, which you get on the, it's a separate line on your village tax bill that you get in June, all right? And it's charged to everyone who has access to our sewer system, whether you're in the village or not. And what we do is that's a separate payment. So the special benefit assessment is what she shows as a separate line item there. SBA, okay? So that's an additional $81,650 because she's increased that as 15% as well. Okay, so that's the SBA. As far as this 10% per year or 15% year increase, it's because we have this wastewater treatment upgrade going on. So the story is this, $9.6 million is the expected cost for the upgrade. We have gotten approval from New York State's EFC for a WIA grant, WIIA, that covers about $2 million grant and a 30-year 0% loan for the remainder of the expense. Now, it only covers $2 million of the $10 million cost. We have applied for a separate grant called a WQIP grant, and the first time through, as Aaron reported last time, we were rejected. We're gonna keep trying until we get this second grant. If we do get that grant, we really need to get that grant. If we do, that should cover an additional $3 million of grant money, leaving us with a cost for the village residents to pay of about $5 million. Okay. Over 30 years at 0% interest. $5 million, 30 years means we'll have to pay an additional $170,000 per year of principal back to EFC to pay off that 30-year loan. Okay. Given our budget is about $390,000, $170,000 is about a 50% increase. That's why we said last year we should get on a path to every year increase our rates at least 10%. So by the time we get to the job being completed, and then EFC starting to bill us for the principal, we've eased people into the rate increase, as opposed to waiting with a lower increase now. And in 2028, say we gotta increase our rates 50%, because people just go crazy. So the idea is that to ease in that rate increase, that's why, as Sarah said, we agreed last year, we would start 10% per year at least to get ourselves starting in the phase of having to pay back this 30-year loan. So is that clear what we're doing?
Yep.
And it's clear also how important it is for us to get the WQIP. So we only paid $5 million as opposed to $8 million, because that's, I can't even stand there and think about it. So it's very important for us to get the WQIP grant. Okay, so given that,
The WQIP grant, you had said is for $3 million, but that's for how many, you had
that's a grant from the state, so they're gonna just erase that from our costs,
okay, so the WIA one, that's
$2 million.
2 million,
right?
I thought you said 30, that was, had to be paid back.
No, okay, so the story is this, the WIA grant, it gives us a $2 million grant.
$2 million is a significant sum of money.
It sure is.
Thank you, Siri, for that obvious answer.
So the WIA grant is $2 million a grant, and then a 30-year 0% interest loan for the remainder.
Oh,
All
okay,
right.
okay, yes.
And then the WQIP is to give us a grant of an additional $3 million. So instead of paying back $8 million, we want to pay back $5 million.
Right, okay.
And
So
again,
we
assuming
would get the 5 million at 0% interest for 30 years.
for 30 years, which is $170,000. If you divide $5 million by 30 years, you get $170,000 a year, which means roughly our rates have to go up 50% to be able to pay off that principal. Okay, so a lot of things hinge on this. But that's why she said we want to get on a path of at least raising our rates 10% per year. Okay? So if we do that, she projects, again, this is a 15% increase she's showing for both the sewer rate as well as the SBA. She gets a total revenue estimate of $426,000. And what was the total revenue, or what was the total expenses?
434, so there's a difference of 8180,
All right, so we're still off by
8180.
8180. All right, so that comes to the board is we can either go back to Scott and have him reduce expenses
The
by
where-
8180,
Where you took that,
or raise the rates even further than 15%, or do a combination of the two.
and it's possible you might not have that either.
No, that's not the point, that's right,
It's possible that those go.
that goes away. So Peter, do you wanna have a discussion with the board about this? How do they think about the 15%? They wanna go back and squeeze Scott now, or?
I mean, if you put that at 50 and 20.
Go to 1150 per 1,000 gallons. Can we figure that out now or no?
She's at 1139, So that's not gonna make that much of a difference,
No.
right? Might make it $1,500 more.
Do we anticipate more clarity about the,
Before we have to approve the budget in April for sure. All right, so we can hold off on that. Any feedback, any problems with the 15%? In the SBA or the rate?
So, yeah, I mean, for the sake of balancing this, if you wanted to, you could take out this 5,000 going to capital and increase that 31, whatever you have left on the revenue side in anticipation that it's gonna give you 1150. Just a thought.
I mean, or minimize that a little too. We upped it, we took 20,000, but then upped another 6.
Maybe we should just let it shake out a little bit. It sounds like there's some X factors in here that,
All right, so we have a work item to work on these, 2 payments of $97.50 between Karen and myself.
Okay.
We'll get closure on that.
All right.
I think we should then, once we know that, we'll send an email to the board, so
yeah,
you can chew on it, how you wanna handle it. For right now, you seem okay with 15%?
yeah.
Okay. Let me just go back to Scott for a minute. All right, so again, the 2 degrees of freedom that we could come back to him on are the main line and repairs and maintenance.
Right.
Right. I don't see anything other.
No,
Mm, we're
usually that's
fine.
where we settle, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. The administration cost is fixed, that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so go to the bottom of your chart, Nicole. All right, so the gap is 8180, that's assuming we put the $5,000 in reserve. And we'll work on the two sides, 9750. All right? Okay,
thank you.
so Mayor, I think that's
Yeah.
it for now. The water follow-up is just whether you can get comfortable with the $5 per meter rate. In sewer, we got to work on the 19,500. That's it. And you'll talk to George about the trees? Yeah. Great.
Fence was gonna be really ugly compared to these trees.
No kidding.
We were gonna make it extra ugly.
Barbed wire,
Yeah,
barbed wire.
Yeah, like, that'll look really good next to Bennett.
So Mayor, I think the question is there anything else to discuss tonight? I think the F and the G budgets have been exhaustively reviewed. So next week is the fire and rescue and the police. And for fire and rescue, the mayor's invited the town council to come because the town pays over 80% of the cost of fire and rescue. That's why they need to be part and parcel of this review of and discussion about the fire and rescue budget. And then the police will be a separate discussion just for us. All right?
So
And then, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that when we go into the discussions in the general fund, which is where our tax rate is calculated, when we get our assessed valuation for the village from Dutchess County, Sarah and I will go through and do the tax cap calculation and see what the limit is. I think it is a full 2%, but we have a whole calculation we go through on the state site, and then we'll come back and we'll let you guys know what, where you need to be to stay under the tax cap, or if the board probably won't, but if you chose to override the tax cap, you need to do your resolution and all of that. But we can have that ready for next time.
But we really don't need it until, so the cycle is that next week is fire, rescue, and police. The week after is highway in the front office.
So you just wanna do their expenses?
And then, that's right, do
Okay.
those 2 weeks of just expenses. And then the third week, you come back with revenues.
Okay,
And then also tell us what the tax cap is, and you can roll up what was the total A fund expense request.
okay.
And that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of trying to get those to not merge up, revenue equal expenses.
And the 5th, you're unavailable for, right, Karen?
No, just the second, just April 2nd.
The 2nd, sorry.
The second, is that the optional meeting or is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
if we could be
Yeah.
finished up by then, that would be great.
When are you gonna do salaries? You could do executive session for salary discussion. Will that be at the same night as the revenue? Or a separate meeting for that?
Try to do it the same night.
Good.
Yeah, we did that last year, right?
Yeah.
We can kind of work on the revenue stuff while you guys are in your
Yeah.
executive session.
And are you guys looking at revenue for this year? How are we looking to end up revenue this year?
Our current year?
Yeah.
We went through that.
Are we
I
okay?
think we're gonna do better with Dutchess County sales tax, quarterly sales tax. So, we'll take a look at, again, like I said, Dutchess County changed their calculation. They used to give us the exact amount that we received every year. So we'll just have to take a look at where we end up at the end of this year and base it on that. And then gross sales tax, and then some of the franchise fees don't come in until later.
Right.
And we talked about the, okay, that's fine, that's for this year.
Yeah.